I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. Habakkuk chapter 3. In his prayer, Habakkuk trembles at the majesty of God. So before I read this one, though, remember, the first two chapters, Habakkuk is asking God why he doesn't do something about the wickedness in Israel. And God tells him, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to bring Babylon in to destroy him. And then he asks, wait a minute, why would you use such an evil and wicked nation to punish Israel? And God says, don't worry about it, because they're also going to get punished. They are going to be judged just like everybody else. Now we get Habakkuk. He is responding to this. This is kind of the Psalm of Habakkuk, a prayer in Psalm 4. So let us read it. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet upon Shigionoth. Before we continue, Shigionoth, according to the footnotes, is a type of poetry. So just like the Psalms, some of them were written upon Neganoth or whatever. These were all songs. These were pre-written arrangements of music that psalmists would then write words that would be sung to this music. And that's probably what this is. This is probably a pre-written musical number that Habakkuk is simply writing his poem to fit. Verse 2. O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years make known. In wrath remember mercy. God came from Teman, and the Holy One from the Mount Paran. Selah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise, and his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. Before him went the pestilence, and burning coals went forth at his feet. He stood and measured the earth, and beheld, and drove asunder the nations. And the everlasting mountains were scattered. The perpetual hills did bow, his ways are everlasting. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was thine anger against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea, that thou didst ride upon thine horses and thy chariot of salvation? Thy bow was made quite naked, according to the oaths of the tribes, even thy sword, Selah. Thou didst cleave the earth with rivers. The mountains saw thee, and they trembled. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered his voice, and lifted up his hands on high. The sun and moon stood still in their habitation. At the light of thine arrows they went, and at the shining of thy glittering spear. Thou didst march through the land in indignation. Thou didst thresh the heathen in anger. Before I continue here, just a few things. This reading from the footnotes here. Verse 3 came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. This is alluding to the bringing of Israel out of Egypt, as well as other deliverances of the people. When it says horns coming out of his hands, this is beams of light. Burning coals went forth at his feet, or flames. And in verse 7, where it says, the tents of Cushan in affliction, and curtains of the Midianites did tremble, this is when Israel was delivered from these other nations. So he's making allusions, not direct references, but allusions to God's miraculous power in preserving Israel, but also he's talking about God's power over nature. That's what the last few verses are all about, is God's power over nature. He directs the courses of rivers. The sun and the moon stood still at his voice. So this is, Habakkuk is rehearsing the power of God, both over nations, over people, and over nature. Let us continue in verse 3. Thou wentest forth for the salvation of thy people, even for salvation with thine anointed. Thou woundest the head out of the house of the wicked by discovering the foundation unto the neck, Selah. Thou didst strike through with his staves the head of his villages. They came out as a whirlwind to scatter me. Their rejoicing was as to devour the poor secretly. Thou didst walk through the sea with thine horses, through the heap of great waters. When I heard, my belly trembled, my lips quivered at the voice. Rottenness entered into my bones, and I trembled in myself, that I might rest in the day of trouble when he cometh up unto the people. He will invade them with his troops. So, of course, the reference to the Anointed One, that is Christ. Christ brings salvation. I'm not sure about all the rest of these. Thou dost walk through the sea with thine horses through the heap of great waters. The footnotes references back to Joshua when Joshua parted the sea, the river of Jordan. But this just seems like, I think this is the second coming again. Strike through with his staves the heads of villages. I think this is the destruction of the wicked at the second coming. And Habakkuk, when he says, my belly trembled at it, my lips quivered. He's seeing the final judgment of God, and it's terrifying to watch. But let us finish this, 17. Although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the fields it shall yield no meat. The flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord is my strength, and he will make my feet like hinds' feet, and he will make me to walk upon mine high places, to the chief singer on my stringed instruments. So this is the final, even though everything else fail, I will trust God. Even though there is no food, even though everything else is falling apart, I will trust God. And I will say that last line there, to the chief singer upon my stringed instruments. That again sounds like a psalmist's note. So this is a psalm written by Habakkuk, sung to the tune or the music of Shigionoth as it is played on stringed instruments. So we do have a poetic prophet here. And that is a fun prophecy. It's very well written. But I think I'm going to leave it here, and we will be starting a new prophet next, because there's a lot of prophecy in this time period. So we'll see you there.